And thanks very much for outlining so clearly all the changes, well, a lot of the changes that you've made in response to the submissions, and that's really good to know too. Okay, so we'll move on, and now I will call our first deputation, which is Chairperson Paul McMahon from the Waitai Coastal Burwood Linwood Community Board. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to start off and acknowledge the work that went on in this very brief consultation period, but a lot of work went into meeting with residents who had concerns and finding compromises, all of which the board supports. It's really excellent work, and I just want to mention Sam in particular, who we had really good feedback about your approach, Sam, and your willingness to listen. So thank you very much. So we can just rattle through and highlight a few points. You have our written submission there. In terms of the Te Aratai College cycle connection, I know that it's very strongly supported by Te Aratai College itself. I've spoken to Principal Dick Edmondson about it. Just wanted to suggest, I understand it's not within the scope of the current project, but we would like to see a signalised pedestrian and cycle crossing by Sullivan Ave for bus passengers. So Sullivan Ave has Ara on the corner there, and we do have some concerns around the cycle lane having the bus stop in it. I know you've dealt with that issue elsewhere as well. And also just wondered whether the planned bus shelters outside the school have enough capacity. And in terms of the raised speed platform, which I know is the most controversial apart from parking, from the information that have been provided after we wrote the submission, it does look like the raised speed platforms do have a positive impact, but our concern is around that we have a 60 kilometre an hour dual carriageway on Ensel's Road coming into this intersection with Ferry Road. So I just wonder about how the speed limits, and if people are entering that intersection at 60 kilometres an hour, that's quite fast to be hitting a speed bump. So I just wonder about the transition. We don't want people to be hitting that intersection at 60 k's, but that is the current speed limit, and I don't know what is happening there. We also wonder about, and I imagine this is probably something that Waka Kotahi would have something to say about, but turning arrows going from east to west, so turning off Ferry Road into Aldwyn's Road. We think it would be really good.
Sorry, did you mean off Aldwyn's Road into Ferry Road, east to west?
East to west. Yeah. Sorry, we're having trouble visualising it.
So you want the turning arrow on...
Turning from Ferry into Aldwyn's, or turning from Ferry into Ensel's. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but the board very strongly supports the compromise that was worked out with the local businesses that went through the consultation. And the other thing, and this is at a different intersection, this is the Allwins Buckley's Linwood Ave intersection. The board suggests extending the turning lane from Aldwyn's Road right into Linwood Ave, so that's going towards Ferrymead. So you're travelling towards New Brighton and you're turning right towards Ferrymead. If extending that turning lane an extra 100 metres, perhaps, so that could be achieved by removing some of the raised median. We're just concerned about there being traffic banking up. So that's that one. That's the Te Aratai cycle connection. Yep. In terms of improving Bromley's roads, just very, very pleased to see investment in this area. These are big, wide roads that were, ultimately badly designed for families and encourage people to drive fast. So putting in some of these intersections, there's huge concern in the community about these intersections, and there's a lot of excitement actually about these proposals. We do wonder around the the Hay Street, McGregor's Road roundabout. There's a number of comments in the consultation wanting a raised roundabout because they think otherwise people are just going to drive straight through, and that comes up a number of times in the consultation because at the moment the roundabouts are going to be flat. So one way or another, it'd be good to make it harder for people to drive quickly through those intersections. There's been some interest in the community wanting some more speed cushions on McGregor's Road between Linwood Ave and Keeley's Road. It's going to be some good proposal for that intersection. The forget the name of the road off the top of my head, but as you drive down McGregor's Road, you come to an intersection with some shops, and then you come through, but without some prior speed cushions, and some unsurprised people will still accelerate through. And there's a number of comments in the consultation too about wanting the need to narrow the intersection with Hay Street and Linwood Ave to stop people coming around that corner really quickly. I go through that intersection quite a lot, and I do see people coming around that corner because you're coming down 60k plus, and it's big and wide, and so you can just come straight around that corner. And there is ongoing issues on Hay Street with heavy vehicles, including buses that aren't on a bus route driving too quickly, and there's desire in the community for a heavy vehicle restriction on Hay Street. And something that came up through this consultation, and there's a number of comments in the feedback from the community around Cypress Street. Cypress Street is a straight road that runs down the side of the cemetery, that there are problems with antisocial road use. I don't know whether there is capacity within this project to introduce some speed cushions and other calming measures, but it's a real problem and it needs to be addressed. And just another plug for lights at the Maces Dyers Road intersection to keep trucks off residential streets. We've been at Waka Kotahi the whole term about this, and there seems to be some softening, so your support would be much appreciated. Do we have any questions about Bromley Roads? Just because it's particularly important to the community and the community board.
Yeah, have you finished your...
No, we've got some...
I think you only got 2.5 minutes. If we do have... Sarah has a question, but I don't know if it's on there. Do you want to finish your presentation to get it done? Or?
Yep, I'll just skim through a few things. In terms of the decisions you have to make. The Smith, I just want to also thank staff for altering the Smith Street Ferry Road intersection in line with what we asked for, making sure that you could turn right and left out of there. Just firmly support that as the new option, and also around the Rona Street, particularly including the drainage improvements. And that's the biggest festering issue on Rona Street, and I'm sure community members will be, and people who provided feedback will be really happy with what's come back. Yep, and I think that about covers it.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Sarah?
Actually, I was just going to check because there was a question here about a comment here about the board wanting to switch from Smith Street to Mackworth. And I'd be concerned if we had to reconsult and miss out completely on doing a project. Plus, it was the board who originally specifically asked for Smith Street to be upgraded to make it safe to travel from Ferry Road from Woolston to Te Pou Toi Toi. And I'm just wondering where the board, because you didn't mention it just then, but it was,
It was I guess it's a preference, but recognise that it's probably outside of, we're not going to get that as an outcome, but the board would have liked to have seen consideration given to that as an option.
Okay.
It could be
just
something
that
in the
board
future.
specifically asked for Smith Street originally. Have you seen
the prior board, the LCH?
Yeah, the LCH board. Yes, which is why it has processed through this.
I wasn't aware of that.
No, it was a very, as we were developing the pool, it was a very clear steer to get Smith Street done. So that's why staff have come up with Smith Street.
I understand the logic,
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Yanni?
Thank you. I just, do you feel that there's been enough changes? I don't know if you've had a chance to read the submissions. You've alluded to it several times, but do you think there's been enough changes to accommodate the concern that people have around the parking loss around Aldwyn's Ensours Road, especially in the areas around the council's social housing unit and the small lanes that come off, where people don't have any sort of real off-street parking?
I'm wrapped with the work that the collaboration that went on between the community and staff and some elected members who participated. And that, I mean, and 2/3 of this is actually outside of our board area, this intersection. But I'm very pleased with the progress, and we need to make that safer for vulnerable road users. And compromise has to be made. So, on balance, yes.
Thanks, Paul.
You raised concern around the bus stops going over the cycle lanes, which I share. Have you been able to get any feedback from staff over the safety of that sort of proposed design?
In the tight timeframes, no, we haven't had. I guess the mechanism we had to provide feedback was through this process.
Yeah, and just a final question from me is in regards to Smith Street. I've been told that was a walking project rather than a cycling project. Do you have any concerns about?
Fiona, he's already answered Smith Street and he's comfortable with it.
Sorry, it's not. It's
And
about the
time is up.
design, not about the actual street. I understand he wanted a different street, but just in terms of having cyclists going in the middle of the road rather than a sort of separated cycle way or lane
Design.
off the middle of the road. I just, given obviously, I'm sure you've used Smith Street a lot.
Fiona, that didn't come up, and that would be a redesign, so I don't think we
I
can
can
actually
respond
go.
very quickly and just
Okay, very
and say that there's, as you'll be aware, there's lots of speed bumps along that street already, and I think traffic speeds are slow enough that it's not a safety concern. I
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And to your trusty deputy as well. Nice to see you. Okay, so we'll move on to chairperson of the Waihoro Spraden Cashmere Heathcote Community Board, Callum Ward. Welcome. Oh, and your trusty deputy. I'm hoping he's trusty.
He's the deputy at least.
Aren't all deputies trusted?
But we digress. Right.
Right, did you want to kick us off, Kier? Trusty deputy.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you all for the opportunity to come along and talk to these projects. I think the first thing that we would like to say is it's really cool to see these kind of projects going ahead, and also great to see that the government is investing that SERF money in transport choices. So, bit of a plug there. Moving on, the one that I would particularly like to talk about is the Westmoreland Cycle Connection. Better cycling from Westmoreland along Cashmere Road has been something communities have been asking for a long time. So this is a really positive investment. We acknowledge that there's probably some concerns that you'll hear from the Westmoreland Residents Association and others later about some of the intersection design. I think some of those are around issues of efficiency that would be really good to have a conversation with them about, because I think some of them may be addressed through the detailed design revisions that have happened, so that would be cool to work through with them. We would like to flag the issue with the squeeze point down by Craycroft. For those of you who are familiar with the area, as you head along towards town, there's a bridge with a particular close to the Norwest Arc intersection. There's a bridge with a particular pinch point, and that's something that comes up a lot. Obviously, that's outside the scope of this project, but it is something that we would really encourage council to look at long term. I appreciate that it's probably quite a substantial project, but that's something that came through a lot, so we'd like to flag that. But overall, it is actually we're really supportive of improving that connection from Westmoreland, Craycroft through into through down that route, particularly noting that a lot of children travel to Forrington School, Cashmere High, and Westmoreland's actually zoned for Forrington, so there's a really strong link down that corridor that's really great to see. Now I'll hand over to Callum to talk about Simeon Street.
Cool. Yeah, sort of also mention as well, bringing back to our board's priorities on the whole, one of our key things is safe transport choices. So, we see these projects as really key enablers for safe transport choices for residents who've been asking for improvements to. So I'm going to talk specifically about Westmoreland as one that's been raised a lot over my time on the board, and also Simeon Street, and particularly by the school and the kids who walk across that section of Simeon Street quite regularly. So I think one of the things to acknowledge here is that the staff have done a really good job with the pressure and the constraints of the funding parameters that they've been given. And obviously, it's not the sort of the extended consultation process that it would be ideal, but they've done a really good job with engaging with residents, on street, online, and in particular with the Westmoreland, we'd really like to acknowledge that that we appreciate that the staff have taken into consideration a lot of the comments that have come back through the feedback and made changes to the design, but also they haven't compromised on that safe transport choice purpose of the project, which is to get a safe cycleway back through that area. And I'd say the same with Simeon Street. Obviously, the key changes around Simeon Street that have come through after the feedback process from residents are around the new crossing points to the park and the school. Board's totally in support of those changes. It's a key use case for that area, and with Simeon Street, I also want to mention that this project ties in really well to the Bram Street project that Wakakotahi's undertaking with building a bridge over Bram Street. So just reminding councillors who may not be aware of that, there's essentially in the pipeline a project from Wakakotahi to build a footbridge over Bram Street at that connection point with Simeon Street. And what that would do is connect two MCRs. This project on Simeon Street connects two MCRs. It connects from I've forgotten the name of it now. The Sydenham Cemetery, the MCR that runs past there. Little River. Yeah, the Little River. Quarryman's Trail and Little River Cycleway. Yeah, that's right. So having good cycle access here is a really important part of, I guess, that second tier connections. We know MCRs are great, and we can make them even more well used by improving this sort of second tier access to those MCRs. And this project is really serving that purpose really well. So just a couple of things that as well that we'd also note is that we imagine, we hope that when the cycleways are built, that the surface is suitable for the purpose. Currently, it is very dangerous for cyclists and scooters because of the camber of the road. So we'd like to see, making sure obviously that safety is taken into consideration with the type of surface that's used there. And yes, also supporting the comments from the Simeon Park group led by Rebecca Finch in their submission into the Howard Street section of Simeon Street. So that's my take on those two.
And finally, the board did just have some comments on the Te Aratai cycle connection. This isn't a project in our board area, but is a project that residents will use travelling down to Te Aratai College. A lot of Te Aratai pupils live in the board area, so we thought it was worth just supporting that this is something that the college is supportive of. It's something that we're supportive of. And I just really wanted to acknowledge the staff on this project. I know Councillor McClellan and Board Member Jones joined us for a site visit with staff at Steadfast Books, and that was a really positive experience where staff did a really good job of addressing some challenges. And I think they've come to a really good outcome there. So I just wanted to, acknowledge that work that they've done and just say that was a really positive process where I think those businesses got a lot of their concerns acknowledged and addressed to the extent it can, well, as Callum says, acknowledging this is about safety first and foremost.
Cool. Right, that's probably all we've got to say. So happy for questions and discussion.
Thank you for acknowledging staff and the way they've worked. I think it's really important that we do that, and this has been a good process. Open it up for questions. Anyone got any questions? Tim?
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning.
The issue of the development on Kashmir Road between 250 and 258 came to our board very late. It was a surprise to me, and I'm presuming it was a surprise to everyone at the board. Do you think we would be open as a board to just holding that end, just to look at the connection between that development and maybe looking at putting it or discussing with staff with regards to putting it into Penruddock rather than a separate road yet again onto this stretch of road that's 100 seems that
You're more familiar with that, Keir.
Yeah, I mean, Apologies. This is quite a specific section
Yeah,
of problem, but I think we would be open to that conversation. I think the challenge is obviously who knows when that development's going to go ahead. The map I've seen seemed pretty high level. I think it would be really good if, as part of the developer going through the resource consent process, staff could as quickly as possible get that alignment resolved, so that at least there's a planning, at least when we're going through this particular project we're talking about today, there's some knowledge of what the future will be. I guess, obviously council can't make private developers behave, but I would assume that they would want to get to a good outcome too. So hopefully that will be a positive solution if staff can get the right conversations going as quickly as possible.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And just for your information, I think we might put a noting comment in the resolution around that particular issue
No, it'd be appreciated.
when it comes.
Thanks.
Thank you. And just for your information, I think we might put a noting, just in case you didn't hear it the first time. Welcome the lovely Emma Norrish from the arguably best community board in town, Waipapa Papanui Innis Central Community Board.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission today. Like the other boards who have already spoken, I too would like to acknowledge the huge amount of work that has gone into this project by staff and thank them for their willingness to work with residents and business owners to deal with concerns. So thank you. Our submission focuses on the projects within our board area. But first up, I would like to note that the Way Safer Streets project as a whole aligns with our community board plan priority of ensuring a connected transport network where community safety is at the forefront of all transport recommendations and decisions we make, including the need for safe speeds and safe streets for all our residents. The first project in our area is the Richmond Neighbourhood Greenway Cycle Connection, which the board continues to support. It is worth reiterating that this is a community developed and led project, with the Richmond Residents and Business Association bringing the idea to council back in 2020. Our board recognises this group's understanding of the area and local viewpoints and supports their submission on the route. One thing that is worth remembering when considering this cycle connection is the fact that Richmond is experiencing increased intensification. On the one hand, this cycle connection will provide great transport options for residents in the area, but we're also talking about a number of incredibly narrow streets, and it has been brought up by a number of submitters that an increased number of vehicles and cycles sharing such narrow carriageways could cause issues. We would like to highlight the need for clear signage, speed reduction devices, and education for drivers as well as cyclists on how to safely use the route. The consultation also asked the question of how to best connect this cycleway to the central city, and our board again supports the RRBA suggestion to connect it by installing a cycle crossing at the exit point of Alexander Street across Fitzgerald Ave to link up with Cambridge Terrace. We note that a number of other submitters have also made this same suggestion. Moving on, our board supports the Te Aratai College Cycle Connection project, recognising the importance of enabling students to get to school safely using whatever mode of transport they choose. We did initially have concerns about the adverse effects on local businesses, but thank staff for finding a way to keep the 19 parks near Ferry Road, which were originally proposed to be removed. We do also, like the Waitai board, have some reservations around bus stops interacting with cycle lanes as proposed in the plan, and ask that safety considerations be top priority when finalising the design of these areas. We see this project as a good opportunity for Te Aratai College students to be involved in design elements. It could be with the design of bus stops or the like, but getting local youth involved like this will not only provide some uniqueness for the area, but also give them a sense of ownership. We're also supportive of the Linwood bus stop improvements in our area, and the Linwood school safety projects which sit in our area, specifically the Linwood Ave Britton Street pedestrian crossing and speed humps, the Linwood Ave Tancred Street pedestrian crossing, the Armour, Trent and Britton Street pedestrian refuge islands and speed cushions, and the Worcester Street Linwood Ave speed hump. And that's all from me.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you. Any questions for Emma? Yanni?
Thank you. In your submission, you state that you've got sympathetic to the small businesses near the intersection with Ferry Road. but I noticed you haven't made any reference to the concern that local residents have raised around the impact of the removal of the parking. I just wondered, has your community board looked at the traffic assessment that was done as part of the Te Aratai College redevelopment and thought about what the impacts are going to be with what's proposed and how that aligns to each other?
I personally haven't, but I think possibly our central members may have seen that, and two of them did sit on list submissions.
Right.
Working group and didn't raise that.
So your board has no concerns at all around the impact of people dropping off, picking up when there's events on at Te Aratai, the impact of the reduction of so much parking? But I'm just trying to understand, where does the board think?
Well, I think Emma's answered the question that it wasn't raised, so
Yeah, it's not something we discussed.
Right. So did your board get briefed on the Te Aratai thing with the sort of traffic
We got
planning
briefed
sort
on
of
this
thing?
project, yes.
and I think we were told yesterday, but I think Sarah informed us there's other parking around Te Aratai as well, which takes the pressure around the back. Yeah.
Except the initial, even the initial plans that we got, which was a cycle lane on, a bi-directional cycle lane on one side, even that had concerns over the traffic management for the school when it was redeveloped. So, yeah, I'm interested, sort of, I guess, at how we're looking at that bigger picture about what the consequences are in those neighbouring streets.
Would you like to make
Yeah,
a
as I say,
comment
I
on
can't add any more than what's in our submission because that's what we discussed.
Right. Okay.
that? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions for Emma? No? You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for coming in, Emma. Nice to see you. So we'll move on to welcome David Hawke from the Horswell Residents Association. Welcome. Nice to
you.
see you.
Okay. Tēnā koutou, I'm David Hawke, Secretary of Horsell Residents Association, speaking on our association's behalf. So thanks for the opportunity to talk to you today. The Way Safer Streets projects. Our association has aims to promote, preserve and protect the interests of Horsell residents to benefit of community and environment. And a large part of that is ensuring that people in Horsell have access to the full range of transport choices. So if they want to walk, bike or catch the bus, they can get to where they want to go in a timely and safe fashion. So as you will have seen from our submission, we really support your two proposals directly affecting Horsell. So first up, there's the Ngāpuna Wai Cycle Connections project. It's probably worth putting in here that accessing Ngāpuna Wai is actually a really big issue for people who live next door in Aidenfield. And it's also for us as an association. And so the Ngāpuna Wai Cycle Connections project is part of ameliorating some of the issues around those concerns from the Aidenfield residents. It's really good to see council joining the dots with another project, which is the Wigram-Haytons Road intersection upgrade, and acknowledging staff who took the time to come and talk to us about that project at one of our meetings. This project will also interface really well with a Whakakatahi public transport priority project along State Highway 75, which is Horsell Road. And that sort of connectivity between areas and between other cycling infrastructure is actually really important. Moving now to the Date Crescent project, the changes that staff are proposing at the intersection with the motorway cycle path, which has got lots of different names, but we call it the motorway cycle path, attempts to address the safety concerns that were raised. I think that's probably going to be an ongoing conversation, but what's been proposed is certainly a really good start. In conclusion, we hope that as a council you'll work with the incoming government of whatever party to fund more projects like this. They're simple, but they can actually make a really big difference on the ground. And next time we might get more projects in Horsell. And if you're short of ideas, just let us know. We're keen to help. Thanks for listening. Kia ora.
Oh, thank you. That's a lovely submission. Thank you. And thank you too for recognising the work that staff have put into this. It's really good to do that. Are there any questions from anybody for David? No. Appears you're off the hook. Thank you so much for making the time to come in.
Okay. Can I just add how well that interface works, the consultation interface? It's a huge improvement on what we've had in the past. and it's really encouraged individual residents to get out there and put their points in.
Yep.
Thanks very
Excellent.
much. Yep.
Thank you for that. Okay, and next we have Fiona Bennett. Fiona's on Zoom, I believe.
She's on Zoom.
She here?
Hello.
Morena, Fiona, fire away. The time is yours.
Morena. Apologies for joining you on Zoom. I'm just home from work for a few minutes to get this in. Morena, and my name's Fiona, as you've seen. I live in Harewood, and I was disappointed that there's no projects out on my side of town, but it's great for the other parts of town that also need walking and cycling connections. Also commend the staff for the very quick turnaround on these projects. It's been a massive undertaking. So I just got to talk about one project that I use in particular a lot. So I cycle along Cashmere Road a lot as a recreational cyclist and also as a commuter cyclist. And I'm concerned that with the shared path, it's not going to allow faster cyclists a safe journey. So we need to allow safe travel for both faster cyclists and slower cyclists. And we need to widen the shoulder on the north side between about number 240 and Lestrella Road to make sure that the cyclists that are using the road, so that the people on the path aren't endangered by the speed that they travel, that the people on the road still feel safe and they aren't feeling pinched and threatened by the drivers who want them to be on the shared path. So we need to provide for both confident and less confident cyclists, and not designed for one to exclude the other. As mentioned in many submissions, and I've seen under the on the agenda, that lots of people have suggested that this cycleway along here needs to be extended along Henderson's to connect with Sparks Road. There's lots of connections that need to be happening all across the city, and I hope that these will happen at a future date. Concerning all the projects, I think I've commented on all the projects that we need safe and appropriate speed limits to be set, and I'm really pleased to see that the draft speed plan has included some of those reductions, but there needs to be more, and I look forward to seeing what's happening in the 4 to 10 year range. Where are they? But things like Cashmere Road needs to be reduced to 40. It doesn't need to be 50. It's not a dual carriageway like Memorial Ave. It's a single carriageway with lots of cyclists and horse riders and all sorts of people just trying to get around. It doesn't need to be a highway. So that needs to be reduced to 40. With regards to future projects, I really hope that the community boards are connecting with residents and asking for project suggestions, because I feel like every annual plan, every long-term plan, I make suggestions of things that need to happen in my ward, and nothing happens. Nothing ever happens. And it's getting really disappointing. So please listen to your residents and do something.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Fiona? And I'm just wanting staff. Monique, did you note that concern around the shared path, and where she suggested some improvements on the
You've got that, haven't you?
for the fast commuter cycle?
Tim's got that.
So the thing is, this has been such a good process, picking up all this extra advice from residents who actually and cyclists who use the roads, to for staff to note. If we can't deliver it now, we've got a note of everything that you need. Now, Fiona, we do have one question that's just come up, and that's from Tim Scandrett.
Hi Fiona, I'm Tim Scandrett, I'm the Cashmere Ward Councillor. Thank you very much for your suggestion with reducing the speed on Cashmere Road. What are your thoughts with regards to the Craycroft Bridge? That's the bridge between the Craycroft shops and Princess Margaret Hospital. I'd be interested in your comments on that.
Yeah, that bridge terrifies me as a cyclist. Yeah. It's way too narrow. Drivers come hooning around the corner, and there's no protection. There's no like wands or flexi posts to protect cyclists. Yep. So something needs to be done there. Absolutely.
So if we looked at, say, and I know this is outside the scope, but just off the top of my head, which is a dangerous thing, maybe reducing the speed and kind of more colour delineation between cyclists and motorists. And I've been kind of talking about wands for a long time, apart from not Harry Potter's wands, of course. What are your thoughts about that? Yeah.
Yeah, like, so again, we need to make sure that for designing for one type of cyclist, we're not excluding the other. So
Yep.
we need to provide, for the groups of all the bunch rides that start at PMH,
Yep.
they need to be able to safely cycle without holding up traffic unnecessarily, but they need to be able to safely cycle to abreast where possible.
Yep.
But we need to also provide for the
Right.
more safety conscious and scared people. So we need both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Cheers.
Yes, thanks, Fiona. Thank you for your time. Thanks for racing back from work for us, and we really appreciate
Thank you.
the effort you've made and your comments. Have a good day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to also another Zoom. Cody Cooper, welcome. And you're there, Cody?
Kia ora, good morning, members of Christchurch City Council. Look, I just want to express my appreciation to dedicated staff who've worked really hard to get these proposals out to residents so rapidly once that funding became available from central government. The two new engagement platforms, Let's Talk and Way Safer Streets Pin Map, have made it incredibly easy for residents to engage with the city's plans for making our streets safer, more accessible. I want to just say great job. Look forward to using these and share them with other residents in the future.
Thank you.
I'd just like to introduce myself briefly. I am a resident of Christchurch. I use many different transport modes to get around: driving, cycling, walking, busing, scootering. And today I'd just like to speak in full support of the proposed low-cost, rapid, common-sense safety interventions that are actually going to benefit everyone in our community, but specifically the Aidenfield and Punawai changes. I was reading through some submissions, and particularly around Aidenfield, some submitters felt that these changes would increase crime in the area. I disagree. One of the aspects I like the most about this proposal is that it's creating new possibilities for connecting with people. By improving the accessibility of our streets, we can meet new people, build new friendships. Further, the staff have done a great job of amending those original plans to provide great privacy for those residents that would be adjacent to where these changes are happening. I'd just like to point out that while both these projects are framed as cycle connections, let's be clear, these projects will provide considerable safety improvement for all road users, not just cyclists, by eliminating muddy tracks, removing that uneven footing, remedying the bridges that wash out or are inundated every time it rains. Look, I don't think council's always getting the basics right. Pedestrian refuge barriers are hit and damaged by vehicle drivers in Wigram. Often, these take many months to reinstate if they ever are. It's concerning the repair of these barriers doesn't seem to be a priority for this council. It's great to build new things, but we need to have the funds on hand to actually fix those things when they inevitably break as well. I'd just like to talk about a success story as well. From potential of investing in safety interventions, the new roving footpath crew has been a massive success. It serves as a fantastic example of what's possible with just a little bit more funding. It shows us that small investments can yield significant improvements in walkability and safety of our streets, and of course, promotes resident satisfaction with council. This success should actually encourage us to seek additional funding opportunities to replicate these initiatives across the city where they make sense. Speaking of funding, I'd just like to urge the council to consider pursuing additional national land transport funding, equity for Canterbury. Canterbury's not getting its fair share today. And additional funding from that land transport fund could provide the cash we need to implement further safety interventions to benefit our entire community. I didn't join the start of this meeting, but Phil, if you're there, I'd like to propose, consider reaching out to whichever Chris we're left with leading our country in October to explore securing more of that land transport funding to accelerate our efforts to make streets safer, alleviating the need to put additional financial stress on ratepayers during cost of living crisis. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate the importance of prioritising low-cost, rapid, common-sense safety interventions like we've seen, focusing on safety for all and learning from those successful initiatives like the roving footpath crew. We can make a walkable, desirable Christchurch for everyone. So let's not miss this opportunity, make our city even better. Urging you to please approve the Aidenfield and Punawai changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good, clear submission. Doesn't seem to be any questions for you this morning. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Awesome. Now we welcome George Laxton on Zoom as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, fire away.
Wonderful. So, hi, I'm George. I'm going to be short and sweet today. I only have one thing that I want to quickly highlight, and I want to spend the rest of the time on answering any questions that you might have. I use the Kashmir Road section with my wife as we bike to see our parents, so that's the main reason why I submitted. But I do want to quickly say about my comment about the signalised crossing point. I think that it's imperative that it's pedestrian priority, so as soon as the button is pressed, it turns orange, because there's plenty of examples around town where the signals are badly designed, so people just ignore the traffic. They just walk across the road and ignore them. And it's clearly a sentiment that was shared by others because it was liked by lots of other people. So please make the traffic lights when you do design them to be pedestrian priority. And if there's any other questions, that's all. Thank you.
That's it. Oh, great. Thank you very much. So are there any questions for George? No, I think your submission is that clear. We don't need to ask you any questions, but thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really appreciate that, George.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So make the lights pedestrian friendly. Okay, so our next submitter has cancelled, so we have a little lull till 10:25. We can. Oh, sorry, who?
Robin.
Oh.
And then
we'll have some questions. No, so Robin Hull is here for the 10:25, so we'll welcome Robin to the table. Then we'll use the extra time for questions for staff.
Kia ora, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here on behalf of the residents of Rona Street who have engaged in consultation with the council. When this first came to our attention, very little time was left for us to consult amongst ourselves. So during the consultation meeting we had with Sam, and I appreciate her time, that it was a little heated and people's feelings were running a little high. To say the least, it was a little bit of a shock. But having given it time and consideration, during the meeting we made quite a few suggestions, which some have been picked up, and now there is a second submission put forward, and we welcome the changes to it. But there are a couple of things which we feel have been overlooked. The main issue we have is with the speed humps. We have no problem with speed humps generally. We've been asking for those to be put in for some time. The problem is that in the original submission, there was a hell of a lot of loss of parking and the narrowing of the road to 9 metres. After the consultation, we asked if the council would consider putting just speed humps across the road without the curb bump outs. This has been done in McLean Street, which is right in front of the school, and seems very effective to work. I appreciate that, having read the submission, that they believe that narrowing the road will improve safety. But we're not a main road, we're only a cul-de-sac. It's only the residents that really come down there. And at the weekends, we get the occasional members of the school who are part of the Kappa Hacker group, and they all park in the street. So we're not a high density street. And so I feel that this is a little bit overkill. We believe it can work really well with a simple speed bump to slow the traffic down. The loss of parking is becoming increasingly difficult now in the street, as there is a new development in the street which has taken one property and now made it 7. There is no area for parking within that, so that if every person that buys a house there has a car, that's 7 more cars. And if we lose 8 more parking spaces, it starts to get congested. We appreciate at the end of the street where the pedestrian area goes, there's a loss of parking there, and we accept that. But we feel there is a happy compromise at the early point to make sure that residents are not compromised. We feel this is probably not the last development that will go ahead in our street. We know of 2 properties that are possibly going to happen at some point. And if those are all done in the same way, then we will be heavily compromised. So I'd urge the council to consider an option that was originally in the paper for a straight speed bump. It would make the residents considerably happy and serve the purpose that it needs. It's worked really well in McLean Street for some length of time. If those speed bumps in McLean Street are what the council wanted them to be, I would ask why in the case now that they are not being amended, why are they not being changed? I've checked through and McLean Street has no actual change of purpose other than a pedestrian area at Buckley's Road. So I would ask them to just bear that in mind, that they have been in for some time and they work really well. The only other concern we have is to do with flooding. I know it's not exactly part of this issue, but if work's going to be done in the street, flooding is part of the issue. During the submission, we put photographs in to show that every time we have torrential rain, the culverts down the side at the bottom of Rona Street and McLean Street both flood, and that impedes foot traffic on the footpath. So we asked for this to be considered. We know that this has been included but not in the plan, but would urge council to seriously look at this issue, because as more and more properties are built in the area, that's more rainwater to run off into the culverts, which were never designed for this purpose. So please, it is not something we take lightly. We deal with this 7 or 8 times a year, where it floods all the front gardens all the way down the street. We have contacted council on numerous occasions to bring this to your attention, but nothing has been done. Okay. Please consider that before you go ahead and start changing all the road. The only other concern we have from a resident is one of the properties, number 63, is having the hedges taken away because they impede part of the berm. She was not aware that the hedges were built onto the berm. They were planted long before she ever bought the property. She does like them. And her concern is not that they have to go, it's the fact that at no point during this process has anybody actually rung up and explained to her what is going to happen. It's a simple phone call from somebody to say, this is what's going to happen. She's from Switzerland, she doesn't quite understand our system. And so a simple phone call from somebody to say, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to do for you, and explain it.
Yep.
I don't think that's really hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So your time is up, but
thank you very much.
But Sarah does have one quick question, which I'll allow.
We've got a bit of extra time. Just wondering, with the 2 sets of build outs that are there for the speed humps, I'm just wondering if you noticed that one of the key things that's going in with those is some trees for some canopy cover. Okay. And when we look at the amount of additional rainwater that trees absorb in rain events, but as well as the shade that's going to be needed as the climate warms. Yep. Many streets are coming to us asking for street trees. And when you look at the leafy suburbs and the things that people like and they're cooler, and I'm wondering if you had a view on the desire actually for a higher amenity street with street trees.
I understand that is something that's viable. I would say the question is, I would wonder how many people have actually been down Rona Street and looked how many trees there are in Rona Street. We have probably one of the highest density of plantings of trees in the rear gardens, and the properties on the right-hand side, which flood on a regular basis, all have hedges and trees, and it negates nothing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that public realm space where we can guarantee to keep the trees rather than where people redevelop and get rid of them.
I understand that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate that. Our time is up. So
thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
We are now going to use this opportunity until 10:30 when we have our break to welcome staff back to the table. Welcome staff back to the table. And if there are any questions that have come up from the submissions this morning, we can ask them now.
Yeah, they may not have the answers.
They may not have the answers, but this will help us with our process tomorrow.
So we will look to record the questions, not necessarily answer them, but make sure we're clear on what you're asking.
So we've got Andre, then Yanni.
Sarah and Tyrone.
Sarah and Tyrone. Andre, fire away.
Thank you. Item 7, speed table on Allwins Road. Is it a speed table that will be clearly marked, visible, coloured?
Yes.
How so?
Well, there's a standardised marking for raised safety platforms that
So the same as Lincoln Road?
yeah, very similar to Lincoln Road.
Very, very similar?
Yep.
Okay, because that has caught many off guard when first approaching it for the first times. So, which has caused some issues. So would this be more visible or made to be more visible than what that was at first?
I
think
it will be similar. It will
Right,
be.
it'll be similar,
There's a standardised treatment, effectively.
Yeah.
In some respects, how you construct it may impact it,
Yeah.
and generally those. So, for example, if it's concrete, you get a change of texture.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that level of detail has been worked through yet, so that's quite a detailed design element.
Yeah.
But and by and large, all the raised platforms will have a standardised treatment, and it is similar to what's on Lincoln Road.
Yeah. Have any raised platforms been put in before on 60k roads thus far? At intersections? Because I know Lincoln Road was at 50.
We'll come back with that.
Cool.
Yeah, I
We'll
think.
come back with that.
thank
I
you.
think what would be useful in this time,
Jim, it's okay.
what would be useful in this time is if you could all identify your questions, tell us what they are. The team up there will write them down and have them, and we will address them in the start of each of the reports when we come back tomorrow.
Nice
Because
one.
there will be more questions as we go through this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. So, Yanni, just stating your question.
So I've just asked if, again, this was something raised yesterday as well, but can we get the integrated traffic assessment for Te Aratā College for the rebuild as part of the consent? And can we also get an understanding of the data and the traffic modelling with what's proposed? I'm just concerned that there's nothing in the report that gives an understanding of what all the different traffic impacts are. I've put these questions in by email as well.
You have already?
Yeah, I've done
well,
it.
we don't need to.
You don't need to repeat them then.
That's great.
So
Thank you.
The only other thing that I'm still waiting to get an understanding of is with the public transport bus priority through Ferry Aldwins Road intersection, Entors Road.
Right.
So I still don't quite understand how the designs relate to that project.
Okay.
And I just, again, I've already submitted these questions via email a few days ago in Rona Street, but I'm just really confused from the plans at what street trees or hedges are being removed versus what's being put in.
Okay.
And maybe it's just a terminology that we heard an address that was different to the one that was on the map that we've got, but maybe there's others.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sarah?
Thanks. Just a couple of quick ones. Around Te Aratā, can we please get some sort of assessment of the parking, on-street parking availability on Harrow, which turns into Tuam, and Bordersley, where there's, so they're both bounding the school as well, and they're unrestricted on-street parking. And maybe check with the school for the on-site parking availability during events, both through the back entrance as well as the front. That would be cool. And then can we please have some potential quick and easy solutions that may not necessarily need consulting on for the Craycroft Bridge, whether that's just trialling, well, I don't know what it's called, but yeah, but if there's things that can be done quick and easy adjacent to the project that we're doing, like whether that's just rumble strips or something like that, that might be quite nice to know if there's something that we can do as part of this.
Yeah, that's a question. Fair enough. And Tyrone, did you have one? No. Tim?
Same things.
Yeah, just the comment which Fiona Bennett's made with regards to speed on Kashmir Road, just to look at that maybe. And as Sarah or Councillor Templeton reiterated about the from say the Hoonhay lights through past the Craycroft Bridge, just some thought on that area would be, thank you.
Victoria?
Thank you. The Coastal Burwood Linwood submission, they made a number of requests for some changes, and I'm just very mindful of the comments that you made at the beginning about cost implications and whether Waka Kotahi are likely to approve any further recommendations. Have you got any comments to make about the cost implications of some of those changes that they've requested?
I think that staff will come back with a summary of that when they introduce that
Sure.
item, and I don't know that any of those, I mean, some of the changes are out of scope anyway, which they acknowledged, so, yeah.
Okay, sure, I'm happy to wait.
Thank you. And I've just got one on the flooding on Rona Street. Is there a record of any RFSs on that, and is there any what's the word I'm looking for? Any investigation being done in the past on that? So, Aaron?
So just on that, staff have sent me a response which I can send through to councillors and mayor.
Oh, you've already got the answer to that?
I've had
Okay.
a response.
Well, did you have one, Aaron?
Yeah, it was on Rona Street as well. Just read the community's request to not put in the build-outs, just do the speed hump straight across. Is that viable? And also, why is there 2 speed humps in a 200-metre cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, question 1.
No, you don't have to answer
sorry.
now.
No, we'll come back to
Because you're on the hoof now, so it gives you time to get your answers
Okay.
prepared properly. So, no more questions? Oh, hang on. Kelly, Mel, and then back to Andre.
Yeah, I'd just like to know the rationale on Rona Street for widening the footpath.
Mel?
The comments that Paul made around the roundabouts and people driving through. There's two roundabouts going
On Hay Street, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comments Fee made around Lestrella and Cashmere and widening. I wasn't quite sure exactly what she wanted, but if you're able to address that.
And Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I was actually just wondering if it's legal to park on speed bumps. They've referred to the example of McLean Street. I'm looking at those and I'm wondering, is it actually legal to park on those? I don't know. It'd be good to clarify. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so that brings us to the end of the first section of the submissions. We're on a break now till 10:55, so perhaps if you get back in here at, say, 10:54? Yeah, thank you. All right.